Are you pumped to catch the Orioles' latest tales, or just a fan of epic ballpark stories? Welcome to the Around the Ballpark podcast, episode 66. I'm Mike, and with me is my brother Darren Redmond. And guess what? We're not alone. We've got the ultimate Orioles superfan Josh and former minor league player at Pigtown Sports. So, grab a hot dog and your favorite team's cap because we're chatting all things Camden Yards and that roller coaster 2025 season. From unforgettable home runs to those heart-stopping plays. Ever wondered what it's like to be a super fan or a minor leaguer? We've got stories that'll make you laugh, cheer, and maybe even tear up a little. Stay tuned and let's hit it out of the park together. Play ball!
Hello, everybody. We are live on a Sunday night, March 2nd, 2025, and I'm here, myself, co-host Mike Redmond, alongside with my brother Darren, and we've got Josh Lynn on with us. Super excited. We're going to talk some Baltimore Orioles here in just a little bit. But Darren, first off, how are you doing tonight?
I am fine. I am more than fine, and it's wonderful to have Josh with us, and looking forward to our discussion.
Awesome. And Josh, we'll get to know Josh here in just a little bit. But before we do all of that, Darren, if you wouldn't mind sharing the word from our sponsors. We're right here in the middle of tax season. So Nashville Tax Solutions, Darren's going to share about. It's got you covered.
You hear on commercials many times, now more than ever. But it is tax season, so now more than ever. Attention, Palm Bay and Fort Pierce. Struggling with tax issues? Whether you're behind on filings, dealing with a lien, or just need expert guidance, Nashville Tax Solutions is here to help. Their team knows the ins and outs of tax relief and is ready to fight for you. But don't just take my word for it. Hear what some of our viewers and listeners have had to say. Chris Bennett and his team saved me from a financial nightmare. They're knowledgeable, they're clear, and compassionate. So don't let tax troubles keep you up at night. Call 855-627-4829, visit NashvilleTaxSolutions.com, or email info@NashvilleTaxSolutions.com today. Nashville Tax Solutions, because tax problems deserve a real solution.
Thank you, Darren. And you'll see there in the right-hand corner of your screen, happy Christopher Bennett there, smiling alongside with his rocking his cool shirt. But yes, shout out to them as always. Thank you guys for believing us in day one when we had just under 50 subscribers. And now, as of this recording, real time, I'm going to pull up that stat real quick. But we are currently, guys, at 1,835 subscribers. So that is awesome. And awesome. Hopefully sooner than you know it, we'll have that 2,000 subscriber party. So I'll invite all our friends for that one. But tonight is about the Orioles, but specifically Josh Lynn, thank you for being on with us. It's been a little bit of time since we last had you on our recording, so super excited to do this live on Facebook, X, and YouTube. So how are you doing, Josh, first and foremost? And those that maybe didn't get to see our episode last time, just a little bit about yourself, who you are, and where they can find you on social media.
Sure. Well, first and foremost, glad to be back. Happy for you guys to give me the opportunity to come back. And like you said, I'm Josh Lynn. Orioles fan, formerly was a writer for Utah Street Report and Birds Watcher. Have a currently dormant Orioles podcast right now. Gonna try and start that back up. But actually from central Pennsylvania, became an Orioles fan when I was about 14 years old. First time I went to Camden Yards. And I have been hooked ever since, and they can't get rid of me no matter what they do.
No matter what they do. And so let's start there if you wouldn't mind. And Darren, you feel free to jump in. So let's talk Camden Yards here just for a moment. So how many do you have like a multi-game pass, season tickets? Do you go when you can when you visit that area? Because you said you're from Pennsylvania or
so. So last year I did have a partial season ticket plan. I believe I went to 9 or 10 games. This year I'm not. I'm just going to kind of go
when you can.
It's like a 300-mile round trip, so it's just like right above the threshold for like a suitable day trip for me. But no, I'm still going to try and go as much as I can. And then playoffs, obviously, I will, any round that they go, I will try and make it down if the cost is not too ridiculous.
Yeah. And also too, do you like, because one thing that I found, like I was talking offline a little bit, I was trying to see if Minnesota might be the destination for this year to catch a game. But one of the things that my goal is, and it's actually very sparse or rare that you can do this, but is to do a Thursday, Friday, like go for 2 games. Because if you can pull off a Thursday, Friday, where you have home at the end of a series of one opponent, and then the Friday, the beginning of a series of another opponent, that would be ideal for me. I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing a 2-game series against the same team, but I think that would be pretty cool to like knock 2 teams off the list there. So, but does that go into your mind when you're planning out a trip like that, or do you kind of just want to, okay, I'm making the drive, let me see a full series, or what do you prefer?
So I have a burgeoning bobblehead collection. So I do try to, if there's a bobblehead that I want, I will definitely get tickets for that game. Otherwise, I do kind of look for good opponents. Like last year, I did what you mentioned there. I went to the last game of the Braves series and then the first game of the Philly series because I thought that those 2 teams were potential World Series opponents. Joke was on all of us. But yeah, no, definitely look for the good matchups. It's kind of hard to like go to specific pitching matchups, but so I try to just go to teams that I think are good or just teams that have players that I like as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And Darren, you look like you're going to say something.
Well, I wanted to ask a question that's sort of based on last year. I mean, I want to just get into it because I really enjoyed our time together last year. And you heard me say that. I thought this team was going to the World Series. Specifically, what happened?
I would say that the short answer is the offense fell off a cliff after the All-Star break, more or less collectively. Specific guys, Adley Rutschman, the first half of the season, and him and William Contreras were, you could kind of take your pick on who was the best offensive catcher in baseball. But pretty much after July, his numbers just cratered, and it wasn't even just his underlying numbers too. His exit velocities went way down. He was popping the ball up way more. He lost all of his power. There was a game where he got hit in the hand, and there's speculation that caused something, but they haven't disclosed anything. But I have a hard time believing something wasn't wrong there. And then you look at like Gunnar Henderson had his struggles at the end of the season. And then, I mean, look at just the 2 playoff games. We scored 0 runs, scored 1 run in 2 games. So, yeah, the offense was a huge part of that. The bullpen was a little shaky at the end of the season, but by the time playoffs came around, they were fine. And I know we got Burns pitched in the 9th inning in Game 1, and Eflin, if I remember correctly, pitched I think 6 and 2 runs, 6 and 1 run. So. Yeah, that was, it's crazy as it sounds because our offense is clearly the strength of the team. They were a very large reason why the team fizzled there at the end.
It's common. A lot of times you say it's not about how you start, it's how you finish. And from day one, it felt like Baltimore hit off the ground running. And then like you mentioned, shortly after the All-Star break, things started. But even July and early August, you're like, okay, not winning as much as they were, but they're still kind of there. And then
that's where I was. I thought they were going to turn it on.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they kind of did the last, I would say, 2 weeks of September. It wasn't all the way back, but they were showing signs of life. They were coming up with hits with runners in scoring position. Adley hit a home run in the last week of the season. So I was thinking, okay, we might be cooking with gas again, but the 2 games against Kansas City, it was just it was rough. And then we had had a bases loaded 0 out situation, got nothing out of it, which was just kind of an encapsulation of everything that had gone on the last couple of months.
Yeah, this is a team that, and I guess we can kind of go there next. But so, what happened, 2 and out first round of playoffs, all that stuff. So now we're here looking at the 2025 season and kind of saying, okay, I don't know about you, but don't feel as good going into the season as I did going into last season. For whatever reason, I was really pulling for the Orioles last season. Like I had no reason to.
I was big.
But yeah. So I want to throw this here on the screen here. So these are just some notable acquisitions for Baltimore this offseason. Obviously, you got Tyler O'Neill, beast. His arms are a beast. Gary Sanchez, a guy who never really caught on as well as I thought there, but Charlie Morton feels like he's been around for ages and ages there. So some names there that they picked up. So, they have made some attempt there to kind of push there. But then when you look at the losses page and you have this, and this is what specifically the Corbin Burns and Anthony Santander, that one hurts. And so do you feel because but Baltimore have lost those two players, do you agree that they aren't as strong as they were last year, or are you confident in some of the pickups that things will be okay and they'll be just fine?
So starting with Santander, this might be kind of spicy. I wouldn't be surprised if over the next 3 years, O'Neill is worth more in wins above replacement than Santander. I love Tony. He came up big for us so many times. I wish in an ideal world we could have kept him, but the construction of our offense or the structure of our offense is such that for the price he eventually ended up getting, it just, I didn't think it was a good allocation of resources. And I think getting O'Neill for slightly less than what Santander got was a really good piece of business. And again, so Fangraphs projections have 14 hitters on the Orioles roster projected to have a weighted runs created plus above league average, which is 100, which is absurd. And that doesn't even factor in Samuel Basallo, who's one of the top prospects in baseball. So I have no concerns about replacing Santander in the offense. Some form of O'Neill and other people in the aggregate, I think, will replace him. Ramon Laureano too. But so the pitching thing is it's a double-edged sword for me. So I think not getting a pitcher even close to Burns' caliber was a failure. Now I don't think he was an option. It seemed pretty clear that he wanted to be in Arizona. He lives in Arizona in the offseason. He just had twins last year. I think it was early in the season. That was just there was nothing like the Orioles would have had to grow, or any other team besides the D-backs would have had to grossly overpay to get him back. So I don't think that was an option. Now, I think they could have tried to swing something for like a Dylan Cease or I know Crochet went for a pretty decent package. I don't know if they would have been comfortable matching that, or if the White Sox valued our prospects the way they valued what they got for Crochet. But I think that was a misstep, and I'm hoping that gets rectified at the deadline, because we still have a lot of prospects and young players to deal from. But the overall depth of the rotation, I think, is in a much better spot than it was last year. Morton, I think it was a good signing on that front. I think he'll be a serviceable number 3 behind Grayson Rodriguez, who I think a lot of people are sleeping on, and Zach Eflin. Sugano is a bit of a wild card because he came from Japan. His splitter is very good, but his fastball, it's going to be touch and go to see if he can make it, because it's not very hard. He was throwing around like 91. I don't know how that's going to play, but he has pinpoint location and he has like 5 or 6 different pitches he throws. So, overall rotation depth, I'm not concerned about, but come playoff time, not replacing Burns is hopefully not going to bite us, but it just, I really would have liked to see that.
Yeah, and I think, you kind of hit the nail right on the head there in terms of, so you kind of you almost feel like Tyler O'Neill may be an improvement from Santander, and it may feel raw because it just happened. But Burns, one thing I remember watching the opening day game, and it was just, there was just this excitement in the air to have a guy like that, like, hey, we got all our pieces now, like we're in it, like, but I think they knew that, like you mentioned, they understood that it was probably not going to happen. So Was there a reason why you think that they didn't pursue someone else, knowing that Burns, couldn't be there, wanted to go to Arizona? Like, were you surprised they didn't make another move, or do you feel like they were comfortable enough with their pieces, like the right deal just wasn't out there with that?
I think that was the case. I think they just didn't see a deal out there, but I am a little disappointed. Now, there were rumors that they were in on Blake Snell, but he just wanted to go to the Dodgers, and what are you going to do about that at this point? And then I think there were rumblings that they were in on Max Fried, but 8 years is, that's, I don't know. Elias is definitely a more pragmatic type, where like some executives may overpay because they think that they have to get the deal done, but he's not going to do anything that he doesn't feel makes sense. He's very true to his convictions when it comes to team building. So I'm sure I guess the right deal wasn't out there. And again, there's always the deadline, and there may be more options available depending on how teams are doing. But I would feel a lot better going into the season with someone else up there. Like I said, not even as good as Burns, but just closer.
Closer. Yeah.
Yeah. And because Bradish could come back at some point, but it's just you don't know. And I think Grayson Rodriguez could make a step up, but it's just, I would have liked to have the additional top of the rotation guy.
And Darren, I wanted to ask you. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think you really touched on something. Again, I use the term next level, which is a huge compliment to you. I think that they were in on Max Fried, and I think the proof is the fact that the Yankees had to give him 8 years. I mean, sometimes you kind of have to read those tea leaves, right? I mean, why normally would you lock up a pitcher who's good, but has also already been injured? I mean, you need to look no further than the Rangers and DeGrom. I mean, wonderful picture, but can't get him on the mound anymore. And not saying that's what's going to happen to Max Fried, but the Yankees had to go 8 years to get him. And I think what the Orioles are going to do strategy-wise is this. There's right now, injuries may not happen in spring training with all 30 teams. Who's going to start? Who's getting squeezed out? Who's available? Who's not? You just have to compete in these early months. And then by trading deadline, be ready to go. And the Orioles, they have a very strong front office. I have faith in that they'll pull the right trigger.
Yeah, and I wanted to, as you know, Josh, myself and Darren are New York Met fans, and talking about injuries, early, and you try to avoid that, but already losing our 2 and our 4 starter for different periods of time. So, but thankfully we had enough depth there with Tyler McGill and others to kind of patch things up for now. But it always seems to be a recurring.
We got Manias out already, right? I mean, this year.
So, but Darren, I'm going to ask you this question, and then Josh can jump in. But Josh, you mentioned Zach Eflin. So this is a guy who, and Eileen, if you're still in here, she is a big Tampa Bay Ray fan. And that one stung for Tampa Bay to lose Zach Eflin, not just to lose Zach Eflin, but to lose them to a division opponent such as strong as Baltimore. So, Darren, your thoughts on Zach Eflin here as we go into 2025 compared to what he was? Because I feel like just similar to Blake Snell, I felt like there was always a leash on him in terms of pitch counts and all that stuff, where I hope and believe that with Baltimore, that wouldn't be the case.
I think, you hit it right on the head. I mean, don't mean to throw around platitudes so easily, but it's true. I think he's going to do the job here because he's not going to have the leash that he has there. I mean, I think that Tampa hurts themselves in there. So I'm going to digress for a second. I have a over 30-year career in the corporate world. I'm in nonprofit now, but I learned at Dun & Bradstreet a long time ago. You have guidelines, not rules. And when you get stuck in the rules, you must go only this many pitches or this many innings. It stops you from being able to stretch and being able to do things. Zach's going to be able to do some good things here with the Orioles because he'll follow a guideline, not a rule. If he's feeling strong or offense isn't picking up things that day or whatever the case may be, you come up with the variable. he's going to be able to throw some more. He's going to be able to do more things. I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, and he's going to be a free agent after this year, so that'll be more incentive for him to perform well.
He's playing for money.
Yes, absolutely. I will say on the Rays end, one of the pitching prospects we traded for him, Jackson Baumeister, he could be really, really good. So that might have stung for the Rays and Rays fans, but Baumeister could potentially be better than Eflin, or his stuff certainly is. So they did not walk away empty-handed from that. But yeah, I'm very glad that deal was made, because the rotation without Eflin would be even more of a question mark. But yeah, he's a solid, like, I would say like a low tier 2, high tier 3 kind of guy. Have no competition in the playoffs. Like I said, he did it last year, did it well. So yeah, he's a very nice piece to have, and by all accounts, well liked in the clubhouse too, which never hurts.
Yeah, I'm going to throw a question out that is tethered to what we're talking about, to the both of you. And Mike, you go first. You usually ask the questions. I'm asking you. I love that you asked they brought that up, Josh. What guideline? I'm going to use the term guideline because I like it. Do you just hold on to your high potential, young talent, or are you more of the belief that says, we don't know how these people are going to be? Remember the Mets a couple of years ago with the Bill Pulsifer and all them? Supposed to be the great Tim Leary, even go back farther with that. Supposed to be the greatest pitchers in the world. They get injured, and they end up not doing very well. Do you kind of do a merge? Mike, you start, and then Josh, you follow up. What is your philosophy? You will trade a prospect for a proven veteran, or do you never trade your prospects?
So I would actually not trade my prospects. I would hold on to my prospects. I would spend the money to get that top name that's out there. But I don't think I would be the kind of owner that would be like, oh, let me go ahead and let this, let me take a chance at this guy. He didn't quite work out for this team, so let me go ahead and sign him. Now, it does work for a lot of people, but I think I would either stay in-house or get that established name rather than try to take someone who failed elsewhere. But before we continue and go into that, Josh, I'm going to go ahead and add Zach here to the call. We'll kind of fill him in, and then
and then ask him that question after Josh answers. I like that.
Yeah. So here we go. And what I'm going to do is add him right now. So, Zach, thank you for joining us.
Hey, how you guys doing tonight?
We're doing very well. And just a quick, as we are live here on Facebook, on X, and on YouTube, we had Josh Lynn on with us as a guest. He's going to stay on with us as you just jumped on. So appreciate you being on here. So we're going to kind of get to where we were at. And Darren, if you wouldn't mind kind of repeating that question, and we'll go to Josh and then Zach right after that.
What is your favorite ice cream? No, I'm kidding. The question was, all things being equal, as a guideline, you're running your franchise. Are you and you have your top talent in the minor leagues. You don't trade your minor league players at all that are top potential, or are you more of the, you don't know these people can get injured, you don't know that there's no guarantee, I will trade them for somebody to help me win now?
So in the context of like the situation the Orioles are in, which is like a middle market where you can afford to keep some guys, but you can't just Dodgers your way and everything. I basically what Elias did, I was more or less what I would do. We kind of amass depth and then deal from that depth. We just amassed this giant collection of middle infielders with like Gunnar, Henderson, Westberg, Holiday, Mayo. And then we traded Joey Ortiz for Corbin Burns, who I think is really good, but he was just a surplus to requirements. And so I think that's really important. And it's also just for a payroll perspective of having cost-controlled prospects. Like Gunnar Henderson's making league minimum next year. Like that's insane value. Mm-hmm. So I think I would do is just kind of identify the guys that I'm really believing in, and then take the other guys from depth and deal them for certain pieces, depending on how other organizations view them. Yeah, kind of a mix.
Awesome. And Zach, same question, but then after that, after we respond to that one, we'll go ahead and kind of introduce you a little bit and get to know you a little bit as you just jumped on with us.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat as Josh. I mean, the Orioles, I feel like have played it right. Other teams maybe haven't. Like, I'll give you an example. Like, what if the Padres hung on to James Wood and C.J. Abrams? Right now, they're struggling to find a left fielder and a shortstop. I mean, but they took a chance on getting an elite talent and sending out some prospects for it. You don't know if these guys are going to pan out, but when they do, in a guy like Soto's position, you only had him for 2 years, and you lost 6 years control of two really good players. It's a fine line, and I'm with Josh. I would identify certain guys that I feel like are my untouchables. And we'll talk about the Orioles, the Jackson Holiday, the Samuel Basayo, and then you have another crop that you can pick from. Ed Gunnar at one point was considered an untouchable guy. Westberg, I think, is still considered an untouchable guy, even though everybody and their mother seems to ask for him. But you have other guys that, if the Orioles could swing a trade for, Michael King and Tatis, I would give up some top talent for that, because you're gaining control of a guy for several years who's also a superstar, and then you also get a good pitcher. But it all depends on the package. I mean, I feel like Mike has done it right. Mike hasn't really given up a whole lot. I mean, he gave up, I think, is a whole lot that nobody really knows about yet with Matthew Etzel and the other guy, I'm slipping his name right now, that went to Tampa for Zach Eflin. But it was a good trade for both teams.
Paul Mustard.
Yeah. So we had a surplus and we used it to acquire somebody good. And I would probably follow the same suit. Other organizations have been willing to just give up everything. And then they find themselves in a situation where they have nothing left for a little while. And I don't want to be in that boat, that's for sure.
Yeah, well said. So, it also, the player coming back depends too. So, I personally wouldn't trade Kobe Mayo, but if you're telling me that the Mariners are shopping George Kirby,
right, 100%.
Yeah,
I would drive you to the airport.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's yeah.
Mike, I just want to tie this up before I forget it. You really touched upon something, Zach. I think that's important, and that is, what does your roster look like as you also get in these young people? A great example is, people may say, we talked about Josh Turner earlier, Mike, before, when you and I were talking about something else. And you say, how did the Mets get rid of him? Well, they got rid of him because they had another guy, David Wright, playing third base.
Mm-hmm.
So, you can't just look at the farm system. You can't just look at X, Y, and Z, because he was an expendable commodity, because they had third baseman, which the Mets normally don't have. And, he went on and did some wonderful things at other places. But so I just wanted to, say that. Mike, you were going to say something.
Oh, yeah. No, and that one still stung. It still stung a little bit each time Turner would do what he did those few years. But Zach, before we get into other questions and things like that, just want to give you this opportunity to kind of just quickly introduce yourself, who you are, where you're from, and where people can find you on social media, and just how you became an Orioles fan in the first place.
So I'm actually from Baltimore, about 20 minutes outside of the stadium. Grew up an Orioles fan. I mean, my entire family was Orioles fans. My grandfather used to take me to the ballpark probably 3 times a week. He actually worked, I don't know, maybe 3 blocks from the stadium. So I would always go over there after school, and we'd go catch a game. He was really good friends with Elrod Hendricks back in the day. So Elrod would always give him free tickets, and we would always sit out there by the bullpen with him, and then just eat peanuts and hot dogs all day long.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I mean, so I pretty much grew up an Orioles fan. I'm right here. I played ball. I went to local high school, and then got drafted out of a local community college here in 2008. That was actually with the Marlins, and then, long story short, I wanted to be a catcher. I was a catcher, and then when I got off the airplane, they basically handed me an outfield glove, and they were like, "You're a little too fast to stay behind the plate." I wanted to be a catcher, so we had a mutual release. I was working out with, at the time, Gary Kendall, who was I think the Bowie's manager at the time. We were in the same facility all the time, so Gary got me hooked up with the Orioles. I went down. I was a catcher, and then I got hurt. I think a couple days before spring was supposed to break. I hyperextended my elbow, and then I rehab back, and they're like, "We're gonna move you back to the outfield to keep you healthy." And I was like, So then I went over to Aberdeen, and then everything went downhill. I was in and out of the hospital all the time, just, oblique injuries, ankle injuries. After that, I just stunk and retired.
That's cool.
And a few years later, and I was doing some video game streaming for a while, and my buddy was like, "Dude, you're really into sports." He's like, "I think you need to give up the gaming." He's like, "Don't take this the wrong way. Just give up the whole gaming thing." He's like, and talk about sports because your passion is there. And when people realize that you have a passion for something, they're going to start to tune into it. So I was like, all right. And around this time last year, I took him serious, and I created this Pigtown Sports channel, and it's kind of going really well so far.
That's great.
That's awesome. And on socials, I'm assuming at Pigtown Sports, but across all the socials, that would be the...
Yeah, pretty much Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook.
Oh, perfect.
Awesome. Yeah, I think TikTok will probably be our next venture. But we, praise God, we're up to, we just added X and Facebook. So we're on all three now. And just sharing earlier, just hit over the 1,800 subscriber count. So, and tonight's actually our 1 year from when we had our first podcast. So that's pretty exciting.
Awesome.
So to see that support. So thank you. I appreciate it. So I'll kind of go there next, kind of just summing that back up. I know you had the brief, the minor league career there with, you said, the Marlins and the Orioles. And so did you have not that I've been to many ballparks, but I was a minor league season ticket holder at Port St. Lucie for the Mets for 5 years. So did you have, in your time, did you have a preferred stadium that you really enjoy going to, or city or anything like that really stood out? Because, some of those minor league games have been some of the best experiences in my life, just witnessing as a fan and really just getting to embrace, all the things that they have there locally.
Yeah, I would honestly probably when the Mets I guess now it's their high affiliate, but it was Brooklyn. The Brooklyn Cyclones. That atmosphere was a lot of fun, and the fans were a lot of fun. I was anticipating getting to New York and getting heckled because most of your minor league stadiums at the lower levels don't really have fans in the outfield. So the first game with fans behind you getting to heckle you the whole time, it was a unique experience, and it turned out really fun for me. It was my birthday, the first time we ever did it.
Oh, that is outstanding! What a great story!
They knew it. That's too,
awesome.
And they started heckling me about it. And towards the end of the game, it was a good sport. And then towards the end of the game, the fans were cheering and stuff when I run back out there. And after the game, we went and had some beers and stuff. It was a good time.
All right, a couple of things about that before I do, Josh. Yeah, you need to know. Have you ever been to Cyclone Stadium? Have you ever been there?
Have not, but I know it's in Coney Island next to
I was going to say it's literally right field is the parachute jump, the iconic parachute jump, and Nathan's is right there. It's just very cool. Keith Hernandez once said, who does the color for the Mets, he said that about that stadium that would have messed him up as a young ball player, because you're in front of all these fans and it's loud and everything that Zach just so eloquently said. And then you get promoted to fill in the word, somewhere else. And you're playing in front of 4 people and a cow.
Yep.
Because the expectations are high there in New York. They, when I got to go visit that stadium on 2 occasions with my father, and then again with my sister, and just was an awesome experience. And here in Florida, when you go to a ball game, like, I love my hot dogs, but like, you get the generic relish, the yellow mustard, not even the spicy mustard. And so going to Brooklyn to be able, I'm like, oh, they have red onions here, they have sauerkraut here, they have the real mustard here, and the onions and the jalapenos. I was just very happy, to say the least. So getting to do that experience twice meant the world to me. That was an awesome time. My father was a season ticket holder there for many years. So that's awesome that you brought that up. And Josh, same question real quick. Did you have a minor league stadium that jumped off the page too, or have you not really got to visit many?
No, so I'm very fortunate to have a bunch close to where I live. My local team is Scranton, which is also one of my favorite ballparks, just because of the scenery is very nice, but like right in the middle of the mountains.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and they just renovated because it used to be like a 2-tiered mini Veterans Stadium replica back in the day when the Phillies had their AAA affiliate there, but the Yankees completely remodeled it. It's very, very nice. Harrisburg, which is a Nationals AA, very nice. I'm trying to think where else I've been. I think they're all in Pennsylvania, but Williamsport is another one I've been to. It was actually the day after the first minor league classic, so they had all that. The field still painted up for that. Alec Baum was actually the cross-cutters third baseman that day. So, I think it was 2018 or 19. But yeah, I would say Harrisburg and Scranton are the two that stand out for me.
So, if I may ask, and then we'll get back to talking all things Orioles. Zach, this is a question I ask a lot of. I've been able to interview quite a few hockey players, and they seem to wax poetic more about this than some of the football players and the baseball players that I've interviewed. Talk about the Sankers and just the unbelievable. People don't realize the bonding that happens on those buses and what that's like. And they'd say how they miss that. Look at him; his face just lit up.
Yeah, it's I mean, you're on a bus for 12 to 14 hours sometimes, and if depending on your age and what level you're at, you get a seat to yourself. So if you're a younger guy, I got in when I was 18, so I was always with somebody else. You learn a lot about them. I mean, you get your little naps in here and there, but for a lot of the time, I mean, you got one AirPod in, and this was back in the old iPod days, and the other one, you're just sitting there just chit-chatting and texting the girls, and then you start talking about that, and texting the family, you start talking about your family, like, and then kind of you build a relationship, and then you're roommates with some of these guys on road trips, and they make sure they split you up so you kind of get to know your whole team, and it's definitely an experience. My roommate for a while was Asher Tolliver, who he was around for the Orioles for a little bit. He was with Houston for a little bit, and we still talk. And I was spring training roommates with Mike Flacco, and that was kind of cool to meet him and meet Joe, and then the dad and the sister and all. And it's a neat experience. I mean, you definitely keep in touch with some of these guys, and I do miss it.
Yeah, and we talk about here in 2025, it feels like spring training goes on forever. I'm not complaining. I enjoy every minute of it. But you got to wonder, it seems it's starting earlier now and going into February. And yes, granted, the season's starting at the end of March instead of April. But it does seem to be extended. And so I wonder if that joy of being back there, when does that turn to okay, let's get the regular season started already, But we are here in spring training, and next thing I wanted to ask both of you just before, like Darren mentioned, we're going to get back to the Orioles, and we will in just a minute. But off the cuff here, just what do you guys think about now that we're talking spring training? It's not going to be implemented during the regular season, but you just quick initial 30 seconds thoughts on the ball strike situation or I guess challenge system that's happening right now, and what do you feel like it could work eventually at the major league level, or do we need to get some more kinks out? So I'll start with you, Zach, with that.
I think probably got a little bit more kinks to go. I like the idea of it. I like the idea if the catcher calls it. Sometimes some of these catchers, they're so good at framing, they'll fool their own pitcher into thinking it's a strike.
Right.
So allow the catcher to make the call. But we've watched a lot of games over the years end in the ninth inning on a really bad call with runners in scoring position, which could have potentially tied the game. So I'm all for it. Just a few little kinks to work out because it's pretty quick. I just think you don't want to – I know there's spring training, they're working on it, but you don't want a pitcher doing it 0-1 of a count or something like that.
Right, because as long as you challenge and it gets overturned, you can keep going, and so it's at one point, when is that gonna? And it feels like it can go wrong for certain players. Like I was watching a game the other day, and I believe it was Max Muncy for the Dodgers, and the manager David Roberts said, "Anyone else can challenge except for you." And so, guys that come to mind, like guys like Jose Siri with the Mets right now, like certain people I feel like can go horribly wrong giving them that kind of that power. But it's interesting. I'm intrigued. Sometimes Darren and I, we like to yell at the cloud sometimes over some of these proposed rule changes and things. But this one I'm not too upset with, but just trying to find what that balance is. So Josh, same question.
Yeah, full support for me. I wouldn't mind the full all-out automated balls and strikes, but we don't. The technology's not really there for that. But witnessing it last year as a fan, I was in Scranton actually. I mentioned in minor league ballparks. It was just shocking how simple and efficient and quick it was. And it's just like, yeah, like you have the technology to do this, and it has, a huge impact. Like he said, these calls have huge impacts on the game. So if you have this simple piece of technology, why not use it? And I kind of equate it to goal line technology in soccer. Like the ref wears a watch, and if it crosses the line, it says goal. If it doesn't, it says no goal. And there's, that has saved plenty of controversial calls I'm sure could have popped up over the past several years. So yeah, this is just a no-brainer for me.
Awesome. So, all right, so let's get back here into the Orioles just a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and show up on here the projected lineup. This is as of now, so this could potentially change here. And it looks like it cut the bottom there off a little bit, but that's okay. So looking at this projected lineup, this was as of a day ago. We got Gunnar Henderson, Jordan Westberg, Adley Rutschman, Colton Cowser, Tyler O'Neill, Ryan O'Hearn, Ryan Mountcastle, Jackson Holiday. So just initial thoughts, starting with you, Zach, on number one, do you feel like this will look a little bit different on opening day? What would you change on your end? Do you like the protection for Tyler O'Neill, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think it depends. They're going to play righty-lefty splits pretty heavily this year. That looked like a primary right-handed pitcher lineup. Against lefties, I think we see a completely different lineup this year. Potentially probably no Mullins in center field, probably no Kjerstad. O'Neill would probably slide over to right. Lariano probably in center and or left, depending on what they want to do with Cowser. We may even see Mateo at some point, somewhere out in the outfield. I'm not really sure, but they're very heavy on their analytics and their rotations. Sometimes I'm for it, sometimes I'm not. But until it stops working, I guess I'll just shut up. I mean, ideally, I'm on the train. I think Jackson Holiday is going to have a fantastic season and eventually, probably by August, be the leadoff hitter. It's best for the Orioles, I feel like, if Gunnar Henderson's in the 3-hole. Right now, I think until we get to that point, Gunnar in the leadoff's probably the best spot. I would flip-flop Henderson into the 3-hole. I think he probably has the best back control of the team. He's one of the hardest 2-strike outs in the lineup. And he showed multiple times last year how good he is, with runners in scoring position and whatnot. And the entire lineup pretty much faulted when he was out hurt. I'm expecting a really big year from Ryan Mountcastle, too. I would probably put him, 5th, maybe 6th. Adley probably in the 2-hole for now. I think we're going to have another bounce-back season from Adley, too. And then, Jackson, I'd probably leave in the 9-hole right now. It's kind of like that swing guy, kind of get him used to that leadoff hit in front of Gunnar kind of thing. Again, I expect him to have the big year, so getting somebody on in front of Gunnar right now is going to be the big thing. Last year, the 8-9 hole wasn't that great. So just to get Gunnar kind of moving with guys on would be really good for this lineup. Other than that, I mean, you can kind of flip-flop Cowser, O'Hearn, Kjerstad, guys like that. I mean, this lineup is so deep, it doesn't really matter where you hit. Just as long as there's no guys going through like a 80 strikeout stretch.
Yes. And Josh, when I first asked Zach that question, and you mentioned the multiple lineups, I saw you kind of already agreeing with that statement. So you feel like you're in the same boat?
Yeah, like if Mullins starts one game against a lefty starter this year, I would be pretty surprised just because of the amount of flexibility that they've given themselves with Loriano and even like Dylan Carlson, who I don't know if is going to make the roster, but could appear at some point. And then like you have, I think Mountcastle and O'Hearn are going to be a pretty standard platoon. They both crush the opposite pitching pretty effectively. I think you're going to see a lot of Ramon Urias too against lefties because he crushes them, and he's capable as a defender. Probably might take some away from Jackson at second base or maybe Westberg too at third base, because I wouldn't really be comfortable putting him at shortstop. So yeah, just so many options. Like I said earlier, we have 14 hitters projected to have a weighted runs created plus over 100. So Brandon Hyde would really have to go on some sort of like drunken binge to put a back here. Like like we could do it. Like I'm not saying we could manage a major league club, but like we could just put 9 good Orioles hitters in a lineup and they would produce just because they're so freaking good.
No, that's I think you're right. I think we will see that, and maybe as the season goes, it'll get a little bit more stabilized. One of the teams in your division, we happen to watch. My wife is a super fan of Tampa Bay Rays, and talked a little bit earlier about it, Josh. But with Tampa Bay Rays, it was like there's like this commitment to have 162 different lineups in a regular season. Like for whatever reason, it's all. I mean, your leadoff hitter will be cleaned up the next day, not in the lineup for 3 straight days after that. You just never know what you're going to get. And but I wanted to ask both of you and Darren chime in as well, because Darren, I believe you've not been to Camden Yards, correct?
Oh, I've been.
You have?
Yeah, we took day trips.
You did. Okay, so let me ask you this question first, then Darren, and then we'll go across the board. So I just wanted to go there a little bit. We'll get back to the rotation here in a minute. But one of the things we love to talk about on this podcast is the different ballparks, right? We're around the ballpark. So Camden Yards, Darren, if you're taking myself or someone that has not been, and there's like, you don't want to drive them crazy, like taking them everywhere, but like, what is your must do at Camden Yards 2025? What would you say that is can't miss besides the game itself?
Well, actually, I want to use my time with that question and defer to Josh and Zach and to get their responses to this, because Josh, you may remember last year when we spoke about it, I hold Camden Yards in such high regard. It is the park/stadium that changed it all. That just changed it all. And you messed with the fencing, and it went out. And then they moved it, and then they put the wannabe high wall. And now they kind of admitted without admitting that was maybe a mistake, that they can't bring some people here. So just because Josh and Zach, both of you, sincerely, you know more about this than Mike and I do, because we see from 10,000 feet. I'm in Cape Cod, he's in Florida, and what went beyond the changing back or sort of, and unpack that for us and your opinion of that. By the way, it's a great stadium, Mike. You need to bring people there. It's gorgeous.
So I think, if I remember correctly, when they announced it, Mike Elias, he might have said verbatim, like, we overcorrected. It was definitely something that I thought was going to behoove them in terms of not only just being more competitive, but attracting pitchers. But yeah, it's just, and even when you go and you see it, it's just like, it looked ridiculous, just how far it was. And just so many occasions where, like, well, Jordan Westbrook had one in the playoff game last year where it's like, you can hit the ball as hard as you can. Your process can be flawless, but the ball just doesn't go out because it just goes into that like abyss of a corner. So it was just a little too excessive for me. I'm on board with the slight alterations. They're moving it back to its original spot in a slight area, but it's still going to be deeper in the majority of left field. So I think it'll be more fair, but it won't be a complete bandbox like it used to be either.
Yeah, I hated the old dimensions. It was like a pop-up fill. It could go out in June and July and August. It was annoying.
You mean like Philly? Nah.
Yeah, I think they were at a point where they knew the team was in a rough spot. They made it a point where they wanted a lot of left-handers. I mean, pretty much everyone they drafted was a left-handed hitter. And they put a lot of stock into that. And they went out and they said, we're going to rely on our left-handed hitters to bang the ball out of the ballpark, because it's pretty short in right field. Not many of the lineups have a whole lot of lefties, and we're going to try it really hard. And they moved it back, and I think they realized quickly, once it starts to cool off in Baltimore after August, it's almost impossible to hit a ball out to left field. Now, June, July, and August, it'll still go if you get one. But we had multiple encounters, late in the season, late August, September, October, playoffs. The ball just doesn't go anywhere in Baltimore. And once the humidity's gone, it doesn't go anywhere. And I think they looked at that and they said, okay, well, we started to win a little bit earlier than we anticipated. And now we can't get any right-handers here at all. And, we're struggling to sign these left-handed pitchers where this ballpark kind of caters to. What are we doing here? Because now it's affecting our guys too. And that's when I think they just, like you said, they didn't admit it, but they wanted to bring it in. And I know Ryan Mountcastle's really excited about it. I know Westberg's really excited about it. It helped sign Tyler O'Neill. Still doesn't really help with the pitching situation. There's still going to be some balls that are going to get out of here that probably shouldn't. But it helps guys like Colton Cowser and Adley Rutschman, who like to hit the ball the other way, and they like to drive the ball the other way. And you couldn't really do that for 80 games at home because it was kind of an out.
Right.
It's going to help those guys, too, be able to use the whole field more and then kind of not get locked into just pulling the ball.
I think you're both spot on analysis, and not just because I agree with it. I mean, again, what we try to do here is bring that sort of let's look next level at what's going on here. I mean, in my opinion, it was a bandbox. I mean, I've been there. I mean, I remember one of my favorite times that I've been there was I had Peter Gammons was sitting 2 seats in front of me. And let me tell you something. He is a fan. Yeah. Don't talk to him, and he's not rude, but he's doing the book, and he's a fan.
Yep.
But also that 7-foot high fence was too small.
Yeah.
Whatever that was. It was like if they overcorrect you, Josh. I love your terminology because that's what they do.
Yep.
Yeah. I got to ask you, Zach, just real quick with your experience. I'm not sure the timeline if you would, but when you were with the Orioles in the minor league system, was that prior to 2010 or was that
2010? Yeah,
it was.
year.
Okay.
Yep.
Because the reason I asked that, so I got the opportunity to go to one game in Sarasota, minor league game to see, or a spring training game there. And I don't know if my GPS messed up or whatever, but somehow I wound up finding myself on the Skyway Bridge, and it terrified the crap out of me. I'm going to be honest, because I remember getting the vehicle I had wasn't that large of a vehicle. I remember it was raining, and I'm going up this thing, and I really felt like at some point I was just going to start rolling backwards down the bridge. And I was squeezing the steering wheel as much as I possibly could. We made it, and it was a beautiful stadium.
Embracing your inner child.
Oh yeah, but I alternate. I was not about to do that again in the dark. That's for sure. But did you ever have to face that bridge? And am I kind of over exaggerating a little bit, or did it terrify you just a little bit? So
no, I've had bad dreams about it, like years later. It's like. It's them dreams where you're just going up and then all of a sudden you just go straight back down, not a gradual down, just a straight back down, and you just basically fall to your death. It's those kind of dreams.
Okay. All right. So I'm not crazy. Okay. No. I thought I was just
not that bridge, but that happened to me on the Chesapeake Bay Bridge. So
I've been on that bridge. Yeah.
Yeah. I had a panic. Like I was having a panic attack. It was not.
I don't drive bridges anymore because of the Bay Bridge. I had a panic attack on them one day, and now I just can't go over any of them.
Yeah. No. I don't think
no.
I don't even know.
That's why.
Since we're talking extemporaneous here, Zach, let me ask you this, because I talked to some people, and you're a wonderful person to ask about this because you're playing at the highest level, and you're sort of when the change happened. When did everybody start going to one knee catching? I mean, it's almost impossible to throw people out.
It's a really soft subject for me, to be honest with you.
Thank you. Ooh, look at that.
I'm old school. I hate it. I
Me too.
Absolutely hate it. And the change came a little bit after me. I want to say like maybe 2013 or 14, whenever Yachty started doing it. And then everybody and their mother thought they could replicate what a Hall of Famer could do. And nobody else. It's like trying to replicate Aaron Judge's swing. Aaron Judge is an uppercut swing. It doesn't work for 97% of people in the world.
Teach a man. Stop advocating that.
Exactly.
And
it only works for some people. And Yachty was so athletic where it didn't matter. He could still get down and block. He could still throw you out. Almost no one else can do it right now. Patrick Bailey maybe can be sort of close.
Right.
I don't care about 2 other strike calls a game because they call it for receiving.
Right.
When these guys are missing blocks with runners on, there's a big difference between a runner on first and a runner on second.
Huge.
That base hit now doesn't score a run, but now it does. Like, all because you were worried about catching a low strike. Like, you can still be athletic and not be on a knee and still gain a strike and still receive it correctly. I don't get the push. It's purely analytical from what I hear. I still talk to Tim Cousins a little bit, the Orioles catching coach. He was my coach with the Marlins, and he hates it himself, but it's like a industry thing now that everybody pushes for it. And I don't even know if teams really like it. It's just
I get it, right? Because everybody's doing it. It's like Emperor's new clothes. You need someone to go, why are they on a knee?
Yeah, I watch kids do it now in high school and stuff, and I'm like, what are you doing?
I was talking to Jeff Fry
to throw somebody out.
Yachty
could throw you out from his knees. It didn't matter.
Yeah, you're not Benito Santiago. He can do that. Yachty can do that. You can't.
Right.
Yeah.
I really don't understand it. It drives me up a wall, and I'm only one person. I can only speak my thoughts on it. Like, if I'm not coaching that team, I only coach 7-year-olds right now because that's how old my oldest is. But
that's awesome.
It's, I still go back to my old high school and I work with them, and some of them do it, and they ask my thoughts on it. And I just personally hate it.
I agree.
That was a great question, Darren. It was ironic. Yes, that actually was reached out to one of our guests that we had on a while back. Doug Ruppel was a former bullpen catcher for the Colorado Rockies and Cleveland Indians. Sorry, I said Indians. And so, but I reached out because he was a big fan of Dale Torborg, and I reached out to him about that and whatnot, and was actually asking him about the whole one knee, two knees thing. But just have to share, if you guys, since he's not on with us, just got to share a quick minor league story, and then I'm gonna ask Darren if you have your final question. I know we're starting to get short on time here, so but one of the greatest stories with Doug when he was a minor league catcher was opportunity he got where it was a season where they were about to go, they were on strike, and the replacement players were about to play. And so I think at the end of this day, if an agreement wasn't reached, then they would get to play in the major league level. So he gets his first, I think he was a bullpen, he got his first at bat in a game on this day. And he was on the Mets, and they were playing the Indians. And so he gets up to the plate and gets a double off the left field wall. And so as he's rounding second base, he gets to second base, and the entire crowd is giving a standing ovation. Like he had just, so in his mind, he's thinking like, they know I'm from Cleveland. So this is just the Mets fans being nice to me. And so they're just clapping me on and, just celebrating my first hit in the minor leagues and stuff. So as he reaches second base, the second baseman for the Indians come over and go, "No, dummy, turn around, look at the scoreboard." So he turns around and looks at the scoreboard, and it says the strike has been lifted. Play resumes tomorrow. And that was it. That was the end of his career, unfortunately. But that's a story that'll never, go. I mean, he didn't get his chance in the major leagues and whatnot, but that's a story that will be forever. So those are the kind of, minor league spring training things that it's awesome when you hear that kind of stuff. So, but Darren, any final questions on your end? And I have a final thing for myself.
Yeah, sure. I have one question, and thank you both for coming on. I'm a lifelong Oriole fan as well, because that's who I played for in Little League. Right? There's my Little League team was named the Orioles, so I love the Orioles. So, same question, both of you. Josh, you first. Your favorite Oriole memory and the face of the franchise. Who would it be?
Favorite memory I have, I was at game 1 of the 2014 ALDS against Detroit when it was Tillman against Scherzer. It was a pretty close game throughout, and then we put 8 on them in the 8th inning. It was a 12-3 win. Also went to game 1 in 2012 against the Yankees, which was the first home playoff game in 15 years, which was incredible, but the outcome not so much. So those two stick out in my head as just personal memories. And then face of the franchise right now, I think Gunner's the no-brainer. But it's also kind of a testament to how good the Orioles are that there are candidates, because I think you could say Adley Rutschman is too, but it's kind of hard to argue with Gunner. He's one of the best players in baseball. He's on the cover of the show this year. One of the guys that I would say transcends the local fan base and is someone who most baseball fans are aware of. So gotta be Gunnar right now.
Zach, same question.
Me too. Went to the same two Game 1 games, both years.
Nice.
Wow.
They were a lot of fun. I remember striking out A-Rod, and I think it was the 8th inning when we broke the outdoor sound barrier record. That place erupted, and it was to this day. And I was also there when Delman Young hit that ball. That was probably my most favorite, just because I get chills still thinking about it, and like rewatching the replay, just remembering like how insane the crowd was. And even like Josh said, he was at Game 1 when Adam Jones hit a routine ground ball to the shortstop and he booted it, and then it was an 8-run inning after that. Like, just the fans were so electric, and that's the kind of stuff that I get with me. I don't really remember like certain things other than just how fun the crowd was. And I mean, even last year, I mean, I was at both games last year, and the crowd was still electric, and it's those are the things that I always take with me, because it's more fun feeding off everybody else than it is remembering one specific play, other than Delman Young, because that'll go down in Orioles history forever, I feel like, and the call on it.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
that's cool.
Yeah, franchise, it's got to be Gunnar for now. I think we might see a push from Jordan Westberg this year. Not that Gunnar's going to like fall off or anything like that. I just think I think Jordan Westberg is probably the heartbeat of the team right now. They beat to his drum. They follow his leadership. Gunnar is a more superstar player, but I feel like Jordan, just being a little older, has that leadership quality to him, and guys kind of just rally to him. They look and just follow what he does, rather than having to be like hooting and hollering and stuff like that. But they feed off Gunnar's energy too. So I think the fact that, like Josh said, how deep the Orioles are, the fact that you could have 2, possibly 3 of these kind of face of the franchise players it speaks a lot about what Mike Elias has done for that franchise.
That's great.
Yeah, actually, I just thought of this. Westberg kind of reminds me of Markakis. He's a little more outgoing. Like, I've seen him smile before.
Not much.
But it's still very much like he's not going to be, like he said, like bumping his chest, like screaming. Yeah. Like, he's just kind of like
leads by example.
Here to do his business. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So, no, thank you guys so much. My final question here. The end of this season, where do we see the Baltimore Orioles? Are they because this is a weird division, right? Where if you tell me that it's going to be 1 through 5 this way, and it winds up being 5-1 in the other way, I wouldn't be all that surprised. Like a team like Tampa, who unfortunately I feel like will be at the bottom of the division, is a team with stacked pitching. I mean, you got a guy in the 5-hole, Josh Bradley, who can be an ace of some other teams if they just gave him some run support. So, with that understanding that. Your thoughts, Zach, where do we see this team? Are they a playoff team in 2025? Kind of taking the super fan hat off for a moment. Are they, or do they just fall short to a different team?
I definitely think they make the playoffs. I have them pushing for the division. I'm not sold on the Yankees. I see the Yankees potentially finishing 3rd. They're one injury away, and they don't have any depth whatsoever.
They are paper thin.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. I'm glad you said that, Zach. Is you can make a case that the Yankees, as is right now, top of the division. You get one hiccup, just one, and it drops them to 3, in my opinion. So
I mean, look, the Red Sox they look strong. We've seen Red Sox teams look strong and not do a whole lot. And we've seen teams in Tampa Bay set up exactly like they are right now with outstanding pitching. And you look at their lineup and you're like, yeah. And then all of a sudden they win 95 games. I don't think Toronto sniffs 80. I think Toronto's the bottom dweller there. They got a lot going on far beyond that team. I think Anthony Santander's going to be wishing he didn't sign there by June. But yeah, I mean, you could potentially see the Red Sox win the division. You could see the Orioles win the division. It could go either way. I mean, the Yankees, if they stay healthy, which they typically don't, they could run away with the division.
Stan's already hurt.
Yeah, Stan's already here. Yeah, already here. Josh, same question.
I think LeMahieu got hurt today too, apparently. So, I mean, he's always hurt too.
Yeah, so I think most of the most reputable projections have them around 89. I think that's low. I would say like somewhere 92, 96, somewhere in that range. I think sounds right. I'm definitely more concerned about Boston than I am about the Yankees. They had a very small margin for error last year, and it worked out. But to expect like 37-year-old Goldschmidt, Bellinger with flaws to even come close to replacing Soto in the aggregate, I just don't see that happening. Stanton has 2 tennis elbows already, which I don't know how you do that at the same time. Whatever. But then Heel is already, I think he's going to get an MRI. So yeah, there's just a lot more potential cracks than I think a lot of people realize. But yeah, Boston scares me. Their pitching is deeper than last year. Wouldn't be surprised if Roman Anthony and Christian Campbell start with the big club, which is problematic for everybody else because I think they're going to be insanely good. That whole Devers situation, though, is worth monitoring if he gets unhappy because he doesn't want to DH. Yeah. I'm so like Toronto. Yeah, like I think Bichette's going to have a bounce back year, and I love Vlad. I love Santander for obvious reasons, but their depth is not great. And then they're pitching like they're relying on Scherzer to stay healthy. Good luck. And like Tampa, I don't know if they're really in that window right now. Like you said, their pitching is really good, and like I love Drew Rasmussen. I think he's going to be potentially their best pitcher. He came back last year throwing almost 2 miles an hour harder after a third Tommy John. And again, that's another thing I don't know how it's physically possible, but yeah, I just think, and then like obviously we have not holes, but concerns with like the top end of the pitching staff. So I just feel like the Orioles have the least causes for concern. So if you're asking me who to put money on to win the division, I would bet them. Now, granted, there's some implicit bias in there, but yeah, I think it's going to be a horse race between the Orioles and Boston. I think the Yankees could still make the playoffs, but I'm not high on them this year.
All right. Well, thank you guys for that honest opinion, and definitely would not surprise me if that's the way that it goes. So this was a blast. Thank you so much for your time. Zach, definitely, and everyone watching this, or if you watch this a little bit later, definitely encourage you to subscribe at Pigtown Sports. Go ahead and give them a listen. I listened the other day, had Ryan Ripken on. It was an awesome listen. And so continue to do what you do. Continued success, my friend, for that. And Josh as well, you mentioned picking back up that podcast. So definitely let us know. But support you both. And hopefully we get to talk again towards the end of the season and see them in the playoffs with a potential better finish this year. So with that said, guys, thanks once again. And until next time, everyone, we'll see you around the ballpark. Thank you, guys.